Ladies, gentlemen, football fans from all walks of life, welcome back to another episode of Necessary Roughness on the Bite Size Sports Network. I'm your host, John. Today I'm joined by the guys from the Bounce. We've got Kev and James, Colts and a Titans fan. So I'm sure you've seen them in one form or another here in the chat or jumping in. Or if you guys caught our mock draft and things like that, you've seen their stuff. If you haven't tuned into the Bounce, which is generally on Thursdays, we've got a special Friday edition of Necessary Roughness. Had some scheduling conflicts on Tuesday with some of the crew, but we are back at it. We've got another fun one, jam-packed. We're going through our ranking series still. We were talking towards the back end of last show that we might start doing tiers at one point or another, but we're going to round out the position groups, and we'll talk running backs and O-line today. But before we get into that, Kev, James, gentlemen, how are we doing this evening?
Fantastic. Glad to be able to put the work week behind me, I will say that, but I look forward to covering more NBA and making some more NBA content. I've got a little plug here. Last night I did a reaction to Adam Silver's announcement of an announcement at the NBA Finals. So a little something to look forward to. James, how about you down there?
I thought this was a special edition of the Bounce. I got tricked, I guess. I got hoodwinked. I've been bamboozled. I'm great. Thank John. We appreciate the invite. I'm a little freaked out that you're just drinking right out of a carton there. I caught that one.
I told you guys. Well, these are a really good deal. So you get like 3-4 of these at a time when you shop at the store. But
it's the Wild Wild West on our shows. Last night we had somebody drinking out of a shoe and a cat ended up on screen, and over here we're drinking out of Minute Maid cartons. Let's do it.
Yeah, I've got two kids, man. You just got to grab a carton and claim one.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so thanks for joining me, guys. We'll definitely be talking a little bit about your teams, maybe just in the running back section, but we'll definitely get into a little bit of Colts, a little bit of Titans, one way or the other. But outside of that, you guys will kind of just be my the response team, I suppose. We'll just hopefully generate a little conversation from these rankings. Let us know down in the comments down below what you think of what we came up with. These are we might hound Nick to submit his for next show, and we'll run through them quick. But these are just mine that we're going to go through today, and then we'll jump to a new set of position groups on Tuesday's show, which will be regularly scheduled programming. But for now, the only thing before we get into that, big news, Ben Ellefson, Hawley, Minnesota native, has retired from the great sport of American football. Tight end for the team since 2021, had a couple groin issues. He's retired. That's how slow of a news week we've had in the NFL.
It has been quite slow, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I'm in NBA mode, but I don't remember too much from this week.
Honestly, and I was expecting some news, from the Vikings' perspective, we've been expecting some news surrounding Dalvin Cook since the turn of June.
Seems like June the turn 1st. Of the century.
Right. We've been waiting on, because now you can finally, the Vikings clear more cap space with the Cook trade. Teams like Miami, who had a post June 1st designation on Byron Jones cut, they suddenly have some cap space they want to play around with a little bit. They've invested pretty heavily in the running back room, but people are still churning out Cook to Miami rumors. But yeah, there hasn't been a lot going on. So
would they with Dalvin Cook, you'll have to update me a little bit. What's the cap situation? Are they better off trading him, or if they cut him, is there a big dead hit from him?
No, so they would clear 11 mil with a cut or a trade now that it's post June 1st. There was a discrepancy there pre-June 1st. But he had, right before free agency, he had a surgery on a shoulder of his and he held off on it to get there was a $2 million bonus that was tied to passing a physical or not. And that's what a lot of teams we thought were waiting on, whether they were going to trade for him or not. Yeah, Lee, that's exactly right. OTAs is about all that's happening. We could, we could bore you guys with, this guy's not at OTAs. This guy's not at OTAs. What does that mean? They're optional. A lot of guys who are on the higher level in this league don't show up to OTAs. Justin Jefferson's not there, and from my perspective, it's like, yeah, man, do your training wherever you want. Let these young guys get reps with the quarterback and whatever else. Like, there's really no issue with it until you have like an actual camp holdout or something like that.
They're pros, especially you guys. You're talking about guys like Justin Jefferson. They're all pros. They don't need to be there.
Yeah.
I do have one, and I wish I would have sent this in the chat of an OTA video. Have you guys seen the Titans clip of the 3 quarterbacks thrown at the fence with the 3 targets in it where it catches the football? Have you guys seen this video?
Yeah.
Kevin, have you seen this? You have. So Tannehill goes first, misses it by just a little bit, like just an inch off. Malik Willis goes second, hits it. Will Levis goes third and throws it over the whole thing and ends up like 20 yards behind. And it's just constant retweets of what is Tennessee doing this year? Like, like that's the guy.
Yeah, he just absolutely uncorks one.
Oh yeah, and I'm sure it's just completely just one clip and but it's just perfect.
Meanwhile, Colts Twitter is on fire because Anthony Richardson threw 2 into a small little net during a in the pocket throw on the run drill, and some of the Will Levis fans were it was great, very chaotic on my timeline. Just the debates. I've got people circling Will Levis's footwork, his front foot on his throw, talking about how it's not aimed in the right direction. So we do have a little bit, but to me, it feels like it's a little microscopic at this point. Like, right.
Like I'm not putting any stock into it. I'm still for Tennessee, I'm still putting more stock into what the effort we do across the board. Like we haven't committed to the tank yet, and I don't think they're going to. Which is here comes 7-11, 8-9, whatever the heck it is these days.
Yeah. That threw me off.
Purgatory is what they call it.
The year they switched. Yeah.
Okay, I've got one other one, John. Before we get into your rankings, I got one other one. Kev, did you see his tweet I commented on today?
I don't think so.
His prediction for Jordan Addison.
I'm in.
I did see the prediction.
He predicted over 1,000 yards receiving from Jordan Addison. That means that Kirk Cousins about to have a monster year. Kev, what are your thoughts on this?
Hawkinson 1K, Addison 1K, Jefferson 2K.
What he's about to throw for 5,000.
You like that? That's my first take on that. How the turntables. I seem to remember a clip that you can find in the archives. I believe it's called A Vikings Fan Reacts to the pick of Jordan Addison. So it's great to see. So that's where I can't tell if this is, okay, I've come around, if that's what's going on with John here, or if this is full on copium, if this is Stockholm syndrome. If he's convinced himself, much like a Cubs fan in the 90s, you convinced yourself that there's something here.
Sorry, my signal cut out for a second there. I think it is a little bit more of the, maybe a little bit more of the latter. It's I've seen him in purple a couple times now, and now it's kind of like, all right, like if he really steps into that role, he's just really small. I worry about him fighting through contact. I worry about him getting pressed to the line. He doesn't really have that, just because Jefferson's a lanky guy, but Jefferson has such functional strength and just all-world balance to where he's able to fight through that contact at the line and get into his route stem pretty easily. He's got these long arms to really fight, hand fight with the corners. And Addison, he just has a more compact frame, and I worry about. I'd worry about him if he were coming in to be your X receiver, but on the opposite end of Jefferson, like if you have a couple Jefferson decoy games, suddenly you might see Jordan Addison really break out, have a couple big ones. I don't know. I mean, like, we're seeing rookies come into the league, especially at the wide receiver position, so NFL ready these days. I mean, Jalen Waddle had 104 catches his rookie year, something ridiculous like that. Devontae Smith had over 1,000 yards.
Jamar Chase, when he came in, you're talking about Justin Jefferson. Like,
Jefferson had 4.
Used to be those guys couldn't do it. Like, used to be wide receiver spot came in, and they were the ones you're like, nah, that's next year. That's not this year.
Yeah,
and it really wasn't that long ago.
It wasn't, and Jefferson already has 2 seasons with over 1,600 yards. Guys like Marvin Harrison did that twice, which is just nuts, So, yeah, the 1K benchmark actually isn't as lofty as it used to seem.
It's a little like the NBA point guard boom we had in the last 10 years.
Yes.
Where they were breaking records left and right, and you're like, oh my God, he's really good, and he's really good. And there's like 10 of them.
In the league.
Yeah, exactly. And you're like, holy crap, these guys are good.
Yeah. No, it's very similar.
And it's cool that Tennessee doesn't have any of them. That's great. It's awesome.
Exactly. Well, yeah, we'll see. Here's another. This is just some little OTA action.
Yeah, see.
16 for 16 in a 7-on-7. Hang the banner.
The only time 7-on-7 has any weight with me were the times when you were hearing reports that Tavares Jackson was throwing multiple interceptions on 7-on-7. That's when I knew in that moment, oh, this guy's not going to be an NFL quarterback. But anything other than something that catastrophic, I'm like, yeah, no, that's good. I mean, it's good that the wheels aren't completely falling off. But other than that, no, I'm not putting any stock in the Mac Jones thing. But I do love his footwork. I hope he gets back to some of that. I hope he looks more like almost more like rookie year at certain points. Like he's got great feet in the pocket. He's got the intangibles. So I'm not ready to be out on Mac Jones yet, but I'm not ready to slam him up in my rankings either.
Yeah, I definitely hear you. Like I always go back to he got voted after his rookie year. He was voted like 68th best player in the league or something like that. He was on the top 100. Yeah. It was really high though on the top 100. It was like, I think it was in the 60s. And so there's the whole crowd of people who follow that like it's scripture and are like, oh, he's a top 100 player already. Why are you trying to knock him after last year? But then there's the prisoner of the moment crowd from last year where it's like Mac Jones sucks. He was bad. Bailey Zappi was giving him competition. But, as with most things, I think the truth lies somewhere in between those two extremes. And he could be fine. They have a decent semblance of weapons finally. The number one guy on my honorable mention, I did top 15 running backs, and the number one guy on my honorable mentions list is Ramondre Stevenson. I think he might have a really big year. With the departure of Damian Harris over to Buffalo, and he's really going to be getting those bell cow touches. He's getting a little bit more sure of himself in the passing game as well. Sure-handed, I should say, and they're starting to use him a little bit more that way. So, there might be games and stretches this year where he really is a 3-down back, where he was just kind of a short yardage goal line guy for a lot of his tenure there. Or, hey, Damian Harris is hurt, go get 100 yards because you're on the Patriots, and this is your week to start. But he's the one guy I want to mention. That's a fine segue. That's a fine segue. I'll pull him up and get him rolling on the bottom here, and switch out this banner as well. So I'll let you guys digest these for just a second. Perfect. Save. Show. So I think I don't think one is very contentious amongst a lot of people. I think Nick Chubb all around. You look at his broken tackle rate. You look at his yards after contact. You have to dig a little bit deeper if you really want to get a fair assessment of Nick Chubb, because in that Kevin Stefanski offense since I think it was 2019 that he arrived, 2020 maybe, and even splitting carries with a guy like Kareem Hunt for a lot of this time, he's really been crazy consistent, second in the league in yards last year behind Josh Jacobs. Not quite as dynamic in the passing game, but he's like, I mean, you smack this guy down in like 2005 when Larry Johnson was in his heyday. Like, I feel like, he might be 10, 15 years too late to really be like the shit. But I think he's still the best running back in football right now until somebody else kind of snatches that from him. Number two, I gave it to Josh Jacobs because he led the league in all-purpose yards last year, or yards from scrimmage, I should say. Also led the league in rushing yards. Really kind of blew up onto the scene finally, and he's still only 25, if I'm not mistaken.
He just played through his first contract because that was a big deal all year. It was a contract year,
Yep. And he sort of finally hit his stride. He's got the Alabama pedigree. He was another one of those backs coming out where it's like, yeah, he was actually born 4 days after me, Josh Jacobs.
So there you go.
25. There you go. He is really kind of coming into his own, I think. And these are sort of within the context of for 2023, who I think the most talented backs are going into this year. Not necessarily who I think is going to produce the most or anything like that. But this is just, hey, all other things being equal, who do I want in the backfield? I got Derrick Henry at 3. I think he's kind of like he's sort of the kind of back that should age pretty gracefully, just because he's so massive. It's not just a power back; it's just a big ass guy. Like, I mean, Jerome Bettis had some of his best years into his 30s, just for being so big. A lot of the Henry highlights are with breakaway speed, but there's also a lot of them where he gets caught and just throws a guy away with an arm and just refuses to go down. Yeah. So I don't think that's going to say he does lose a step in his long speed. I don't think it's going to take away from his game too much.
Yeah, I think he kind of like one. I'm surprised you have him this high. I love it. Like, I love it. Like, I would have guessed you had him lower. I think that breakaway speed's a little. I think he was a half step slow last year. Now, Tennessee's offensive line was awful, but he seemed to get caught a lot. But you say that, then you're like, oh, he still had over 1,500 yards rushing last year. He had almost the most receiving yards, if not the most receiving yards he's ever had. Yep. I think you're right. What did he? He's like 6'2", 240.
Yeah, like, just unbelievable. Just a different size guy.
Yeah, it's not like he's a small back, and he's really, outside of last year when he broke his foot, has never been injured too.
Right.
So I kind of agree with you. He's one of those ones where he drafted a third down back, which takes it down away from him, but helps him a little bit from they're not going to hand it to him every single play, which I think they will anyway. But they're going to have a little bit better line. Like, he could be in line for a big year just because of that. He's relentless, man. Can you imagine every play just being like, all right, here we go. Derrick Henry. This is the first play again. And then it's fourth quarter, and you're like, There he is again for the 25th straight time.
Damn it.
Oh, and they threw it to him 5 times.
Yep. Right. And, how good was like LeGarrette Blount into his early 30s? Like,
yeah, that's a great one.
He's just a big-ass guy, and I think he's going to be really effective still. Like, I mean, Miles Sanders finished like 8th in rushing yards last year for free. If you put Derrick Henry behind the Eagles' offensive line, which, spoiler, I've got them pretty high, I think he's having an absolute monster year.
He might have another 2,000 yards. Yeah, he might have another 2,000-yard season.
Right.
Insane.
Right. So that's the way I was kind of trying to contextualize it.
It's just specifically by the player without the line, which that makes the best sense, the best way to do it, because you factor in offensive lines and offensive weapons and stuff, and then all of a sudden it gets quite a bit different.
Yeah, and you start having to kind of semi-predict, durability of that offensive line in addition to the back himself. So yeah,
every situation's different. Who's their receivers? Who's their quarterback? There's all kinds of
it gets really mucked up. Who's calling the plays? I don't want to say, oh, this guy's going to have the most yards. Yeah. So that's the way I'm kind of thinking of it. I've got JT at 4. Kev, you're a Colts guy. He was sort of the undisputed number 1. I feel like coming off of would have been 2 seasons ago. When he had his really big year behind what that year was quite arguably the best offensive line in football. But he had a good year last year as well for his availability. When he was on the field, you didn't see a huge drop off, in my opinion. He's still really young. If he played any other position, you'd say he's definitely ascending. But he definitely might be what he is at this point. But he's one of those guys who came in with the tread on his tires concerns. All those carries he got at Wisconsin. And then kind of shut those people right up and said, no, I'm going to take all the carries here too, and I'm going to hold up fine. Ran into a little bit of injury trouble, but I couldn't put him any lower than this. And I went back and forth on he and even Josh Jacobs at a certain point. I considered having him as high as 2, but how do you feel about JT at 4, and what do you expect out of him this year?
Yeah, I'm good with JT at 4. Our lists aren't that different. Just speaking, I'll save some of it once we get around maybe like the 5. This next grouping is maybe where I have a little bit of some guys in different order, but our top 4 currently actually looks exactly the same. I had a hard time. I really wanted to put JT over Henry for what should probably be obvious reasons, but the fact that Henry has added the pass catching to his game, which was something that I didn't honestly expect. I still right now, I think honestly any of these 4, I'm not certain that Josh Jacobs shouldn't be number 1 on this list, by the way. That's really my biggest debate is I think Josh Jacobs might be the best back in the NFL this upcoming season, but I'm good with JT at 4. He played behind the highest paid offensive line in football last year, which just makes that whole situation even more laughable. And what's going to happen this upcoming season is at some point, Anthony Richardson's going to play. And just by his sheer athleticism and what I imagine will be Shane Steichen's play calling, I do expect a lot more RPOs. I expect a lot more of tight end Jelani Woods at 6'7" being brought into the fold in goal line situations. We also have Josh Downs now in the slot. And so I know I'm saying a lot of things that don't have anything to do with the running back, but I'm saying that because it's not going to be so much of 8 men in the box. We know they're going to JT in the red zone. This will actually, just by Richardson's legs alone, they're going to keep defensive lines a little more honest. And I think that will be to JT's benefit because I'm still not sold. I know that offensive line is going to play better because it's not possible for them to have played worse. And they got rid of a few of their weaker links, which means that guys like Quentin Nelson won't literally have their heads on swivels and trying to be playing multiple positions. So they'll be a little better. The talent around him will be better. And in that case, and because of that, I do think he's definitely one of these top 4 guys.
Yeah, that's a good call. Let's talk sort of this next group. I feel like that's a relatively natural sort of tier break, at least the way it was in my head. Like, I never thought I'd have any of these next few guys. I mean, CMC is a difficult one because there are the durability concerns. When he's good, he's really good. And there's nobody like him as a pass catcher, as a running back. But I lean a little bit more towards pure running with the football on design runs and more of the running back stuff. Like, I know he brings a whole other element where he can straight up line up in the slot or out wide and run a competent route. And obviously he can do so many more things on the offensive end. We saw him throw for a touchdown, catch a touchdown, and rush for a touchdown in his first game as a 49er. So it's one of those things where it's sort of a preferential thing, I think, at a certain point, because I wouldn't be up in arms over somebody having CMC in that mix with those top 4 guys. I wouldn't be freaking out if they had him over Aaron Jones, let's say. But I have him down there. I had Aaron Jones and Saquon ahead of CMC, and I just want to see a tiny bit more out of guys like Kenneth Walker and Dameon Pierce before they're much higher on this list, frankly. Like, I think they're really chomping at the heels of those guys in the second tier right now, and could catapult themselves into the real upper echelon of backs in the league if there's a big year this year. Pierce, I think, will still have those bell cow carries in Houston, which is going to help him in the exposure department, I suppose, as a fantasy guy. Walker now with the addition of Zach Charbonnet over there. The Seahawks have a compulsion come draft time to just take a running back. They just
that was weird this year. Yeah,
they see him in front of them and they're just like, it's like
whoa.
Yeah, you'd think the commissioner, like, I picture Pete Carroll and John Schneider like in the checkout line, and then but right on the shelves right before you check out is, instead of a Kit Kat bar, it's like a day 2 running back. And he's like, I mean, throw this on. We got the essentials. We can just throw in a running back. It's not
There's room in the budget for this.
Yeah, we got it.
Why not? I deserve it.
Don't bag that. Just give me. I'll just take that with me.
Yeah.
I scouted hard this year. I deserve a little treat.
Yeah, I scouted
Put that one in my
hard.
pocket. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly. But they just
that's
they
funny.
just can't not. So it's going to be a committee over in Seattle, for sure. So that might. But when you see the ball in his hands, he's so dynamic. He just has a different gear. He's one of those guys with, when he hits a hole, the acceleration through it is otherworldly. Tony Pollard I have at 10. I think he's fantastic with the ball in his hands as well. He's going to be the number 1 back in Dallas this year. And I think he probably should have been for more of last year, even though he did get a lot of those touches. He's been awesome for a long time. And now finally going to have that number 1 exposure. And then he was the last guy I put ahead of Bijan.
Do you have any, before we get to Bijan, do you have any worries with Tony Pollard's injury? Is it a fractured leg? Is that what it was?
A little
Do you have
bit.
any worries recovery-wise there?
A little bit. I could see him not getting all the way back right away this year. Just because he's a really bursty guy, he has
shifty, quick.
Yeah, he has great contact balance, but it's that burst for him that I think is really how he wins pretty often. So, oh crap! Looks like I froze here. This is probably the farthest into a stream I've ever frozen.
We can hear you.
That's good. That's good. Okay, I was just gonna private chat us.
You got a good picture. You got a good picture on the screen. I'll give you credit there.
Yeah, that's perfect. Well, I'm probably gonna just hop out and back in, so that fixes itself. But yeah, talk about that second tier a little bit. Are there any other of those guys that you put Bijan ahead of? Do you think you have him lower? But yeah, I'll be right back here.
Kev, my question to you is, go ahead, buddy.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was just gonna say I've got a little bit of a different breakdown for the second tier. I don't know about you, so I'll just read mine off real quick.
Now I can hear you. I was gonna say
I had
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. I had Saquon at 5, CMC at 6. I have Walker the third right now at 7. As I tinker with this, he may fall down, but then I have Aaron Jones at 8 and Eckler at 9. I actually have Bijan probably lowest out of everyone. I have Bijan right now like at 15th. He might be 14th if I tweak it, but I want to, as much as I like rookies, I want to actually see him take some snaps in the league before I make him a top 10 back.
That's kind of how I feel. I agree with that. That's how I feel about it. I understand John's reasoning on CMC, the injury thing. He was pretty healthy last year. He didn't miss any time for the Niners, right? Now, the 2 seasons before that, he missed extreme amounts of time.
I don't know if it was significant. I want to say that I thought he did miss a game, but I might be wrong there.
Okay.
He definitely didn't miss any significant time.
I'd have to look.
Lee's got some thoughts here about Walker. Yeah, running back by committee hurts him, but talent level probably number 4.
Yeah, he's absolutely right. Walker was really good. They did a little bit of committee last year, and then you take Zach Charbonnet this year. Like, I agree with him. It really hurts him, which is odd to take a running back, especially that early. It's a weird thing to do. I agree with Bijan. I think he should be lower. I find Austin Eckler at 13, I think, for me, is too low.
I have Eckler at 9. And
yeah,
I might have had him at 8. Like there's a chance, there's a world where I let where Eckler's 7, Jones is 8, and Walker's 9. Right now I have them flipped there, but Eckler's top 10 for me.
Yeah, I think I'm like you. I'd like Josh Jacobs be 1. CMC would be higher for me. I think I'd have Eckler ahead of Dameon Pierce, and I think I'd move Pierce back, Bijan back. I'd leave Tony Pollard at 10. If Breece Hall didn't have a mega injury, I think he could very well be top 10 too. But man, he's got he's an ACL tear, right?
Yep.
Yeah, he's
for Achilles.
I hope
every time though, it's probably an ACL. Every time I think it's one or the other. It's the opposite one.
It's always the opposite.
I think it's ACL because I was rehabbing an ACL tear last fall and a half. That's why I think it was the same injury, which still for next year puts him not like that first year after an ACL tear is not usually the year. It usually takes 2 years for him to really kick it back into gear.
Yeah, I have Hall at 16 as of now, like just on the outside, like that first. I'm a little higher on Ramondre Stevenson. I have him at 14.
Yeah, Ramondre's for sure 16 for me. Like there are a few other guys I considered for a minute, and it came down to, I'll sound a little hypocritical for splitting hairs this particular way after what I said about CMC. But it came down to what ETN brings in the passing game a little bit for me. He's just a little bit more dynamic, and I was like, I'd probably rather have ETN in a vacuum. But I mean, I love a back like Ramondre Stevenson though too. He's one who very well may sort of mature into one of those types of backs we were just talking about with the LeGarrette Blunts and the, I don't think he'll ever have a Derrick Henry peak. Not many will, but in his older age might age pretty gracefully for a running back, let's say, with his size. Yeah, Dameon Pierce is one of those that I'm just kind of infatuated with the attitude with which he runs. Like it's just one of those guys where he's like, all right, yeah, I'm in on this guy. This guy's sick. Like the play. I don't know if it was week 1. It might have been like week 3 against Jacksonville, where he broke. It was like an 18-yard run, but he broke 7 tackles on the way in, kind of towards. I mean, it was just ridiculous. One of those where you had no idea he was still going. Like there were defenders on sort of the periphery of the play that just gave up because somebody had their hands on him and he just squirted out, and then they're bouncing off him and he just rumbles in. Some of those types of runs are just like, that's why I love running backs, just the guys that refuse to go down. He's got that
I ain't
fight
quitting, man.
attitude he runs with. Yeah.
And he did it on such a bad team too. Like, they were so bad.
Exactly. And so, I
all
think
the more impressive.
Yeah. So in this year, and I know this isn't about production, but I think this year he might be pretty poised with what's around him and the new energy in that offense. Might be poised to have a really, really big year.
Yeah, rumors are that Stroud's already taking control of the first team offense, just in the limited time. So maybe there's going to be a little more running room. I'm not ready to get too excited here, but I have Pierce at 10 on mine, so I'm right there with you on the hype. He's done too much for me in his limited time in this league on my fantasy teams for me to not be paying attention to what the guy could do on a real offense.
Oh yeah, exactly. And like you've got, they took a guy like Juice Scruggs, who was
what a name, Hall of
Fame
name,
pick, all name
That's a
team.
banger of a name.
Kenyon Green is going to be in year 2 now, which for guards is usually the year they really come into their own. And he went 13, I want to say, in the 2022 draft. So that could be, if he takes a step forward, that'd be a huge step in the right direction. Laramie Tunsil is in the conversation for best tackle in the league. You've got a good collection of guys, and not the best weapons in the passing game yet, but this, I think, is, in terms of dynamism, is an offense is going to be leagues ahead of what they had last year. I mean, it was just so dull. And Pierce was really the only life breathed into the offense from what I gathered anytime I watched that team. And his highlights are just so badass. I'm probably a little lower on Eckler than a few people.
That's what one of the ones I said when you were hopping right back on us. I'm like, I'd have him top 10.
Yeah, I have Eckler at 9. Like, and he could be 7, honestly. Like, I keep flirting with where to put Walker and where to put Aaron Jones, but I also got called out for on Twitter last week for apparently saying that Eckler and CMC are alike is a crime. I was a fool for comparing the two, but I see a lot about their games that I like that are similar, but I'm a big Eckler guy.
Yeah, and he's sick. I don't know. I think part of it for me subliminally was like, he might start to table off a little bit around this year. And maybe some of these other guys are just on an upward trajectory, and he might, if not regress, might sort of just plateau, which I feel like he did last year a little bit. The touchdown numbers and everything are a little inflated. I mean, he's a hugely important piece to that offense. But now this year too, if anybody's healthy, they'll have more weapons around him to supplement that. And I think just on a down-to-down basis, just when I was thinking through it, those are the guys I'd take over him. But what he brings as a pass catcher is great. I probably should have him over Dalvin Cook. Cook is so hot and cold. He had one of the lowest EPA per carry. He had one of the lowest yards per contact, or yards per carry after contact in the league. and he had one of the lowest adjusted yards per carry in the league. So some of the more advanced stats. And he was running behind an offensive line that was a pretty good run blocking unit. It's an unsung group for sure, and definitely had some deficiencies, particularly on the interior in the pass blocking game. But guys like Garrett Bradbury, who don't have a great anchor in pass blocking, guys like Ezra Cleveland, who was a college tackle at Boise State playing left guard, real long, wiry guy, not great leverage, again, to anchor against these interior penetrators. Ed Ingram couldn't pick up a stunt to save his life in the early part of the year. He stepped on Kirk Cousins' right foot and tripped him before he could get the ball out from under center multiple times in one season. So all that aside, it was a good run blocking unit per PFF tracking. They were, I think it was the 5th best run blocking unit. And so I think Cook was a little bit buoyed by that group. To me, he really lost a step. And for him, breakaway speed was a big thing. It's a lot of these ones where, hey, everything lined up perfectly for Cook to take this one and house it. And he takes it for 12. And that's kind of the explosive play. He wasn't breaking like any tackles. He had 3 plays on the top 100 plays compilation. I don't know if you saw those. So the highs are really high. He housed an 84-yarder against Miami. He had a big screen to keep us relevant in the Colts game. He had a big touchdown against Buffalo. But for me, it's just not consistent enough, and I don't think it's going to get any more. So he did have surgery on a shoulder, which, according to his agent, he's been playing through an ailment with the shoulder for 3 years, and he's been ducking contact in a very specific way for 3 years and having to favor that side. So now he's going to have the best year of his career. I don't know about that necessarily. I think it was footwork. I think a lot of it was him losing a step in that department. So that's a guy I could comfortably have Eckler over, and I could probably put Eckler over Bijan as well, just for having proven it. But
that was Kev's argument against Bijan, is he just hasn't proven it, so he refuses to do it.
Yep, and that's
stick to your guns, Kev. Stick to your guns.
That's a good man, It's a good philosophy, I think. But
Kev, I think you're muted.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened. I got him at 15 though. He's right on the cusp. But yeah, I just want to see him. I just want to see him come out and play. I believe the talent's there, but there are guys, especially guys like at the back end like ETN, because my back 5 are Cook, Pollard, ETN, Stevenson, and then Bijan. That's my 11 through 15.
Okay.
So
gotcha.
Still like him. I think if we do this at the end of the year, I expect him to be higher up on my list. I just want to see it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm probably with you there. What do you think? Should we talk the most exciting position group in football?
Yeah.
Some of the most polarizing names in the sport. This one is, for me, it'll be a fun segment for sure. I think it'll be an interesting conversation because I think so much comes down to the state of affairs in the trenches. These are the teams that are going to be able to succeed in January, late in the season, into the playoffs, when you can really control the line of scrimmage. And what's interesting about the offensive line is continuity is such an important factor as well. So that's something I had to try to at least factor in a little bit. The cumulative individual talent is a big part of it. But there's one team on here that the only reason I snuck them in is that continuity of a group that I think is good. It has some high-end stars on it. I don't think there are any real duds, at least going into this year. Definitely has its weaknesses, but I think the continuity is going to help a lot in that department. So I will pull these up on the screen momentarily. Lee knows nothing.
Please. I will say before you even pop them up, as you brought in the AFC South to help you out, and I don't think me and Kev are going to say either of our O-lines are going to be on this list anywhere.
I can tell you about bad O-line play. I saw a lot of that last year.
Yeah, me and Kev can give you exactly how to do that. I saw a offensive line list recently that had the Titans 31st out of 32 teams.
Oof.
And I'm like, that is with us drafting a guy, signing a left tackle, signing a right guard, and they're still got us. I was like, woof.
Yep. I was really surprised you guys let Nate Davis walk.
I guess him and Vrabel have problems. Like, I thought the same thing. I was like, our line was atrocious last year, but it wasn't him. And it's not like he got mega money. He got decent money, but Vrabel rubs some players the wrong way, and they let him walk. They cut David Long, who was our best linebacker, and it's going to be an interesting year down in Nashville.
He signed for 2 years, 11.5 or something with Miami. 2 years, 11.
When he was healthy, he was our best linebacker, but he had soft tissue issues and missed like 5 games at the end of the season. And Vrabel specifically called him and Christian Fulton, our corner, out at the end of the season, and then they got rid of. They didn't re-sign David Long. I'm just like, I hope you guys know something I don't. I was like, he went to Miami and signed for nothing.
He got some real All-Pro consideration.
Yeah, he wouldn't have missed those last. I think he missed the last 4 games, 4 to 5. He was on IR, and it was soft tissue issues and hamstring or something like that. And Vrabel just season-ending press conference called out 2 players specifically, and he was one of them.
Vrabel just saw soft on the report, and he's like, "We won't have soft players on this team."
Yeah, that sounds about right. Sounds about
right. This guy's got soft tissue. Get him out of here.
Like, get him out of here. What is that?
Rub some dirt in it, all right?
Yeah, right.
Vrabel sees anything with soft.
Gen Z kids and their soft tissues.
Yeah. If he sees soft tissue, he gets rid of them. Or if he sees wide receiver, he gets rid of them. What is the wide receiver? Don't need that. Get him out of here.
Yeah, I used to catch touchdowns as a linebacker.
The wide receiver thing is still one of the most mind-blowing things to me that Tennessee didn't sign anybody, didn't trade for anything. And you have the comment from, I can't remember if it was the Chiefs game or what game it was last year, where they have Vrabel mic'd up and you see him on the sidelines and somebody says something about passing it more and he goes, "Who the fuck am I supposed to throw it to? Who are we throwing it to?" He's on camera mic'd up and it's like,
that's electric.
Yep, he's correct.
That is electric. That would be a pretty good Hard Knocks team. You might get some good, like, hard-ass quotes from Vrabel.
I think Tennessee would be a good one between him and I don't think you'd get much from Derrick Henry. I think he just blows people over and turns around.
Imagine all the weird things Will Levis will eat.
Vrabel would be awesome.
Yeah, weird things Levis will eat. There's be Levis and Malik and Tannehill. That whole dynamic would be fun.
The quarterback dynamic would be awesome. I don't know, guys. I'm still scared to eat my bananas with their peels on. Like, it's a little weird. I haven't done it yet. I haven't committed to the bit yet, or I haven't put any mayo in my coffee.
It's like an apple. That's where all the nutrients are, is the outside.
I have it on good authority from a Colts insider.
Oh, that's why I don't have a 6-pack.
That if you put mayonnaise in your coffee, you will be having a similar experience to if you went to a Rally's or a Checkers late at night and got you a double rally burger with some large fries. So I hear it doesn't taste as bad as you would think, but it is not nearly worth the consequences.
Don't stay away. I'm cool, man.
Unless you're cutting weight for a fight, then maybe try it.
Yeah, fight milk. Always sunny.
Will Levis drinks it every morning so he can throw to a crow.
Yeah. Oh, man.
4 quarterbacks,
you know what?
5 quarterbacks.
You know what shirt I happen to be wearing too?
Oh, my Lord.
Let's go. We got to get an episode of Dweeb going again. Yeah.
I am dead inside. It says, yeah, we do.
Yeah, we got to get back on.
Oh, that would be sick.
God.
The hog mollies.
Lee has a
Give us
question
your
for
Hog
you.
Molly list.
Before your top 10 comes up, he says, do the Raiders have the worst O-line? So who was that team behind yours, James? Is it the
Do you
is it
remember
the Colts or the
I
Raiders?
actually don't remember. The Colts
could be
were
the
in
Raiders.
the realm. I don't
It
think the
could
Colts were
be.
behind them. It might have been.
I'm trying to think of who else
Tennessee
would be
definitely had the worst offensive line last year. I've never seen a left tackle as good as Dennis Daly. I've never seen anything like it.
This really makes me
Maybe
find
it was.
out.
I'm gonna have to dig.
Yeah, I'm gonna look and.
Kev, what? While he's researching, Kev, what'd you guys do to fix your offensive line? Did you do anything?
Not much. A little bit in the draft. We also picked up an undrafted lineman that we're pretty hyped about because I think he at one point had 4th round rankings. There was some kind of injury or something weird kept him from being drafted, and he was signed like immediately. Like as soon as the draft was over, it was announced that they had signed him as an undrafted free agent. So, and then just getting rid of Pryor was the big one. So Raymond,
That's the guy.
Bernard
yeah.
Raymond, they kind of went through his lumps last year. They think that he'll be able to work it out. Right guard was the huge hole, and so they've drafted and signed some guys to get there. But it's just one of those thoughts that, I mean, take this with a bag of salt, but I mean, one of the three of us might be able to do the same job that that Pryor did last year.
He was bad.
It was it was a revolving door, like literally. He was a turnstile.
I went to that Titans.
I've got a great pad level.
Yeah, the Titans at Colts game, man, he was woof. Yeah. God, he was bad.
Maybe we couldn't do a better job, but I bet we all three could get by him.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So I went to find who was ranked behind Tennessee. The first list I found actually had Tennessee at 32. But in the realm are the two New York teams, Tampa Bay and the Rams.
It might have been. It was either New York or the Rams. I can't remember if it was PFF's grade list. I don't. As said, like the only place Tennessee can go is up, boys. There's one positive. When you're rock bottom, the only place you can go is up.
I forget. Yeah, you forget about the Rams O-line being so poor because Cam Akers had that little renaissance at the end of the season. I, for one, probably because I'm a homer, look above my hat, but I believe the Rams have a very talented back in Kyron. What is it? Is it Williams? He got a couple of looks last year and it didn't go well, but their offensive line stinks. So, yeah, I think they've got a couple of talented backs there. If they can sort it out, I wouldn't be surprised to see them all of a sudden be just running down teams' throats. But they're going to have to get some bodies on that O-line first.
Yeah.
Yeah. And no, you're right, though. Kyron Williams is one of those guys who had he's got Maurice Jones-Drew style pass blocking highlights, where he just
so low.
Yeah,
exactly.
He just takes somebody on.
And he ran out of this weird spread offense that Notre Dame likes to run, which really gets in my opinion, it's the worst way for a downhill back like him to get his carries because you don't get the momentum. And he still just did lots of damage with it because he had a solid O-line at Notre Dame. And you get him in a single back formation and get a couple of guards that can block for him. And I really think this guy, don't be surprised if whether it's in LA or somewhere else, if Kyron Williams ends up being a waiver wire guy in the coming years, if he ends up making a splash somewhere. Ooh, the man, the myth, the legend is here. He missed James and I coming to bat for Austin Eckler, Justin Herbert. You missed it, man.
He also missed our Nick Nurse talk last night.
Yeah, go check the episode last night, Justin, the Nick Nurse convo.
Yeah, just comes in
some love. We were all over Eckler. John, what do you got? What do you got here, bud?
Oh yeah, let's pull them up. Here we go. They're ticking.
I don't see the Colts on here.
We're gonna
Colts, Titans. Oh, there's the Vikings. They made the list.
Vikings
make the list for me because of that guy with the helmet.
Get some honorable mentions here out of the
Power
way.
Ranger helmet.
We like the Chargers O-line. Okay. I I think Zion Johnson was one of my favorite O-linemen in the draft coming out. Another guard who's going into year 2. Jamari Salyer is probably back at guard. He's got guard tackle flexibility. Oh yeah. See, yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Lindsley's great. Rashawn Slater might have the sickest anchor I've ever. He's the type of guy who can completely lose a rep at the beginning, at the engagement point, and re-anchor like a just a bulldog. Like you'll see his feet just skip a little bit, and his back will bend, but his hips don't go anywhere. Like
his hips don't lie.
He has crazy flexibility. He has crazy strength. And he's one of the best left tackles in football. Was right when he stepped onto the field. Lindsley's great when he's healthy. Yeah, Trey Pipkins is a good swing tackle, I suppose. He might start at right. Who knows? Yeah, see.
Sean Slater's got he's part of the all-name team.
Oh, that's such a sick name, yeah. Yeah, Herbert, I had your guys going. I have your Chargers getting the 2 seed this year. I don't know if you caught, what was it, last week's show? We did our playoff things, or our full.
Caused some chaos in the bite-sized Discord.
Yeah, it caused some chaos. We had some, but Trevor, I had the Chiefs winning, or I had the Chiefs going farther in the playoffs. But anyway, the Chargers I really like the Texans O-line, frankly. They're probably just a little bit on the outside looking in. Some other ones that are good that are maybe close for me. I like the Patriots O-line. And the Texans picking up Shaq Mason at the opposite guard is a pretty quiet move for a bag of peanuts. I think it was a 7th round pick swap, and then they got Shaq Mason from the Bucs just to clear some cap. And then I like what the Panthers have going on. With Ike Ekwonu and Taylor Moton, that's one of the better tackle duos in the league. Austin Corbett coming over from the Rams. Now I think he might be in his 2nd or 3rd year. This may be going into his 3rd year in Carolina, if I'm not mistaken. Brady Christensen's probably going to play some guard. So we'll see how that unit rounds out. And then shout out to our buddy Nate. The Bears O-line actually looks kind of good on paper. Just because I'm a big Darnell Wright guy. Braxton Jones was good early on.
Signed Nate Davis.
Cody Whitehair's serviceable. So yeah, that's a fine group. But all that being said, let's get into the real top 10. Let's go.
One of those is going to be in there. The other one's not.
Great choices, Justin Herbert. I like your AFC Championship choices.
Yeah, that is a good call, Herbs. I'm going to go down from 10 to 1. Obviously, you can see them all. But in terms of justification, the Vikings are the one where it was like kind of all continuity for me. I'll pound the table to the effect of our offensive tackle duo is no lower than 3rd best in the NFL right now. You're talking Christian Darrisaw and Brian O'Neill.
Darrisaw the guy with the helmet?
He's the purple Power Ranger. That's exactly right.
He looks so cool. I'll give you one more point there. He still looks so good in that helmet. He looks so
badass. And
yes,
he has one of the sickest snatch moves when a guy tries to get into his pads. Oh, where in the hell you got Chargers ranked? They are in the honorable mentions category. 11 to 15.
11-ish.
I'll say 11-ish. And yeah, so Darrisaw has one of the sickest snatches in the game. When somebody tries to extend and get into his pad level first, he has the pull down where he drops the guy. He did that to Kayvon Thibodeau like 6 times when they played. He did that to Robert Quinn like 6 times when they played. He's so badass. And Brian O'Neill, when he's healthy, he's a Pro Bowl level right tackle. One of the most athletic tackle prospects coming out, and has turned into a great pass blocker. In his first 4 seasons as a starter, he only gave up 6 sacks. Orlando Brown in his last season in Kansas City gave up 6 sacks. Just to contextualize that for you, and he wants to be paid the most out of anybody. But sorry, I'm just getting distracted by some Herbert
comments getting you.
Yeah. And like I said, as a run blocking unit, this unit is really upper echelon. We'll see if the continuity helps on the interior of the offensive line, but the real studs on the outside. The Broncos I have up here, it's one of those things where I just like what they brought in. I think that Ben Powers and Mike McGlinchey
McGlinchey's awesome.
I just think it's going to be a pretty good unit. I like Quinn Miners, who's probably going to be at the right guard for them. And I feel like there's a name the left tackle, the kid Garrett Bowles, another extremely athletic tackle, who I think is going to be a really, really solid bookend tackle. Now covering Russ's blind side with a little bit more help to his right, with Powers and McGlinchey both coming in for big money. Now the Packers, by week 1, Herbert, your Chargers might have an easy into the top 10, just because we don't know what David Bakhtiari is going to be doing necessarily. Elton Jenkins is a real floor raiser for your offensive line group. Can play any position on the O-line, fill in wherever. A guy like Zach Tom at right tackle was great in a relatively small sample size last year. John Runyon's fine. Josh Myers is fine. You should have taken Creed Humphrey, but Josh Myers is fine, I guess, if you want to take him as the first center off the board. But I think that unit's still going to be really solid if they all play. And if they're all bought in. Like, there was some Bakhtiari might be done as a Packer. He's said some weird cryptic stuff. But there's nothing I can really – there's not much I can put into that yet. So I'm still going to have him up there at 7. And then before we get to the top 5, and we'll chat a little bit in between, I've still got the Ravens up there. Ronnie Stanley healthy. Kevin Zeitler is one of the most underrated guards in football for sure. And so I think that unit's going to be really good. And then the Falcons. This was potentially the best run blocking unit in football last year.
They're going to be fun.
Algier to 1,000 yards. The Bijan behind him this year. Re-signed Caleb McGarry, who is an absolute menace at the right tackle. Chris Lindstrom just set the market at right guard. You still got Jake Matthews at the opposite tackle. And this was, again, one of the best running blocking units in the league. Nowhere to go but up. Re-signed their young guys, kept the talent in the building. So I like what they did a lot. Any teams, within that sort of back 5 that you guys are any higher on or lower on? Any teams in your assessment that are real snubs? I know we'll get I know what Justin thinks in the comments about his Chargers, but any of the teams that come to mind for you guys, even if I did give them an honorable mention, that you'd really pound the table for to have in this top 10.
I like you mentioned the Broncos. Like, I know they're in the top 10, but I like what they did, what they had, and then a lot of people said they were overspending, getting McGlinchey, but he's good, man. He's really good.
That one might have
really
been a little
last year.
like there's a chance that was like I might be a little higher on them subliminally because of like how much they spent on the offensive line and agency. Like that might be shifting my opinion. Might be having more of an effect on my opinion than I'd like. But I think
you're probably right.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
And Russell can't move like he used to. You got to be able to protect him.
Mm-hmm.
If you're gonna overspend somewhere, the trenches is one of the places you
I think I just liked the strategy a lot, and that was kind of my, I don't know. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, they could certainly be lower. The Vikings could certainly be lower because they do have weaknesses. As on the interior. But again, I think Ed Ingram's another guard who's going into year 2. He'll start to figure it out. Ezra Cleveland, last year, his rookie deal, Garrett Bradbury just got a fresh one after having his 5th-year option declined.
That's always fun when that happens.
Right. But he came back. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of where we're at. And the top 5, I feel like are not. I mean, there's not a ton of debate to be had, in my opinion. You could shuffle a few of them around. But where I started to really have some difficulty was in 6 on, because I think these 5 groups are pretty head and shoulders above the rest of the pack. Mm-hmm. Eagles are insane. You lose,
Eagles are unbelievable.
Fine.
I mean, the Titans took their backup offensive lineman to be their starting left tackle, in hopes that he's going to figure it out. It's just like, that's how good they were.
Yep. Landon Dickerson, when healthy, is unbelievable. The Dillard ended up losing a job.
That's who Tennessee signed.
Yep, Andre Dillard loses his job to Jordan Mailata, who comes onto the scene out of the New Zealand rugby team.
Oh yeah, mean bastards over. Them rugby guys are a different breed.
Dude, those Jordan Mailata rugby highlights are so difficult to watch. Because it's just like a bunch of guys like me being like, with no pads, just being like, and they just catch a Jordan Mailata shoulder because he's just, dude,
break your nose.
Dude, yeah, he is just an animal. And then Lane Johnson, certainly comfortably in the conversation for best tackle in the game on either side. Mm-hmm. I think you have to mention him in that conversation. And, maybe it's just Trent, and then you mention him in the
next tier,
the following conversation for number 2. But yeah, I mean, I love Lane Johnson. The whole underdogs thing with the dog mask was badass, even though they beat the brakes off my Vikings that year. But I like that group a lot. Jason Kelce back for one more run, highest paid center in the league on a 1-year deal. They've got Cam Jurgens waiting in the wings, who's a very similar
Husker right there, boys.
Yeah, yep, that's right.
He's from Nebraska too. He was a highly rated tight end coming out of high school who moved to offensive. I think he might have played defensive line for a year too.
Is that right? Yeah,
it might have been. Maybe he was highly rated defense. He was really highly rated coming out. I can't remember what spot he played, but they moved him around a lot, and then he ended up at center.
And I wonder if I'm thinking, because I know John Michael Schmitz was, I think it was Cam Jurgens as well, who was a pretty good wrestler in high school.
I don't know for sure, but it wouldn't surprise me.
It could certainly be a different guy I'm thinking of, but I love when there's a wrestling background for an offensive or defensive lineman. Just the way they understand leverage and the hand fighting.
Yeah.
I think always gives them an advantage. Like Keanu Benton has a wrestling background. A guy like Alexander Madison has a wrestling background. You watch him fight through contact and how low his pad level gets. You're like, okay, yeah, that checks out. But yeah, so I think that's pretty irrefutable. I love the Browns unit. They really don't have much of a weak spot. I mean, the center position since the departure of J.C. Treader has been something they've had to navigate. But we've talked a lot about tackle duos. This is probably the best guard duo in the National Football League. It has been for a couple of years, and Joel Bitonio and Wyatt Teller, just some absolute tanks. And you look at a guy like Jed Wills. There's a lot of talent in this group, so hard to have them much lower. Lions, same thing. A guy who's in the conversation for the best center in the game in Frank Ragnow. Taylor Decker, a guy like Penei Sewell, who is, still kind of up and coming, even though he's already here. Jonah Jackson at the other guard. They just don't have weaknesses. Interesting.
Pretty
interesting. I'm trying to figure
out a lot
out
of similar names.
I love that Colts in the top 10 from Justin Herbert.
I love the dead serious.
The self-proclaimed Mad Dog Russo of Bite Size Sports. Who wants to remind James? James, I'm only pulling this up because I know you can't see the comments today. He wants you to know that it was always the Owls.
It was always the Owls, Justin. Yeah, I'm on my phone. I left my computer somewhere, so I've used my phone.
Eagles and Chiefs.
So that was the prequel, and then I'll put this top 10 back up one more time.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm as high on the – okay, but then you had the Packers at 9. I was just about to say, I don't know if I'm as high on the Packers as you, but no, I am.
Dude, are we worried about the Chiefs losing Orlando Brown and then signing, was it the Jacksonville left tackle? Is that who it was?
Yes, it was Jawan Taylor.
Yeah, are we worried that'll hurt them a little bit?
Maybe in the run game a little bit. I think he'll be a more consistent. I think he'll be a more consistent.
I missed you, Justin. I missed you.
Honorable mention for the Vikings. I love
honorable mention. We'll take it. I don't think so, honestly. I think you lose a little bit in the run game, but they're not a hard-nosed offense. They're not going to run it down your throat. I think he adds value in the passing game on the blind side there. Next to Joe Thuney, I think he'll only have room to grow. And next to a guy who has been playing at an all-pro caliber, I think he's going to help him out a lot. And if there's one guy to keep an eye on or remember the name of on this group, it's Trey Smith at right guard.
Yep.
He's a problem. He is not he is a long day personified for any defensive lineman. He's just relentless. He's a huge guy. He's got giant hands, and when he gets a par or two on you, you're not going anywhere. He finishes blocks like a motherfucker, and he is just he is a brute. And he's coming into his own. I want to say this will be year 3 for him. And that's another thing where the continuity comes into play. With Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith, and Joe Thuney, now you have another year of them together, as a unit on the inside, which is going to help a ton. I don't think the Orlando Brown to Jawan Taylor is much of a drop-off. Particularly because the Chiefs didn't really play to his strengths as much, I think if they ran more power off his back hip, then he might be kind of utilized properly and maybe kind of earn that dollar amount that he's been chasing. But no, I think that was a pretty savvy move to sort of say, I guess if you want a bitch, you can leave Titletown. So,
you like winning titles? That's cool. See ya.
Yeah, we can bring another guy who probably wants one. But yeah, no, I think that's gonna be a great unit still. And then I got the Cowboys there. Super confusing Tyron Smith combo. And then Zach Martin, still one of the better guards in the game. Bears to the Super Bowl.
There he is.
Just in time, Nate.
Shuffle.
Yeah,
He did.
Nate, you got your
give
unit got
Bears
some love
line.
earlier.
He did
Nate, you
give
made
guys
honorable
some love.
mention. Jesus.
An irrational confidence guy. We do love it.
Listen,
we won't make too much fun of him because he came through on his bet last night.
It's true. It's true. Check the archives. You need to see the epic.
Took a live shoey last night.
Oh God, James or Nate.
Das Boot.
It was awesome. It'll be up this weekend. I forgot to cut it today. I have mad respect to him for doing it.
You're a good man, Nate. That's wild. Oh man, I think no one remembered, but I'm pretty sure I said something like I would take an absinthe shot if the Celtics came back. So I had that riding on Game 7 a little bit.
You ever drunk absinthe from a shoe?
Yeah, right. Yeah, we would
get
have
near old Greg territory here.
Yeah,
exactly.
You'd have to double that up. Oh man,
I'm a scaly manfish.
Nobody loves me. Why don't you love me? God. Where's
Colonel Jefferson on your top 10 O lines there? Sorry, I can make the old Greg references all day. Ooh, here's a hot take from Nate. Brown's O line is very overrated. Where were you a few minutes ago? You got here late for that take, but I would say it's safe to say that John disagrees. John, what's your retort?
Yeah, I think I disagree a little bit. It's one of those things where there's you're as strong as your weakest link kind of things. And I think their floor is very high for that reason. Like I said, the center has been a little inconsistent since JC Tretter's, in and out retirement, and the medical concerns where you thought they might bring him back. But I think they're just too, and it could be a thing where that Stefanski wide zone scheme really just plays to their strengths. But it's a little difficult to hold against them. Conklin, I think at times is a little overrated. Just a kind of a high draft capital pedigree kind of thing. And the same could be said for Jed Wills, I think, at times. They certainly would have been better off with a Tristan Wirfs or an Andrew Thomas in that draft. But no, I don't really think so. I could certainly see the Chiefs being over them on a list like this. And I think a conversation could be had with the Cowboys. But about as low as I'd put them is 4, I think. Lions, Chiefs, Cowboys.
Pull it back up there.
Oh, interesting. Ravens. Yeah, Ravens are good.
Jack Conklin, another former Tennessee Titan, just roaming around out there on a better offensive line unit.
That's right.
Jesus, Tennessee. God. You wonder why we're where we are.
Podcasting.
Have you seen pictures of Taylor Lewan recently? He has lost like 150 pounds, it looks like. He's so small.
He looks like he's like 205, yeah.
Teaching people how to make left turns on the internet. It's been interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
That one was great.
Well. If you have any last thoughts in the chat, shout them out. We're going to wrap up. Oh, Titans honorable mention. We're going to wrap up the.
Justin, I appreciate the love, buddy. You don't have to. That one's okay. You can take that one back. It was always the Owls. Just remember that. Even I know that.
Yeah, right. We're going to wrap up here shortly. Next week, in 4 days now, and Tuesday, we'll turn this around and we'll get into some probably slightly more engaging position groups for some anyway. And we're going to talk defensive line, edge group, interior defensive line. And then maybe we'll do something of a composite. Hey, who has the best front in the league? And then we'll jump to off-ball linebackers, corners, and safeties after that. There's Dweebs in here. I thought that was D West for a second.
D West, speaking of him, check him out. Thursdays, when you're done watching the bounce, I think we have one race left for the number 9 bite-sized sports car. D West could win it all. We're only 17 points behind the leader. We could win the whole dang thing.
Check it out. Yeah. Justin's already talking about the Chargers front.
Yeah.
And he's not even gonna mention Kendricks. I'm glad you brought up Thule and Chris Rumpf, though. Those are good calls. Yeah, Dion Henley, no Eric Kendricks. Unbelievable shade. Yeah, so is Dion Henley. I like Thule on there, though. So, yeah, that'll be a fun one, I think, to get into. We'll talk some more trenches. And then once we get to tiers, I'm sure we'll jump to quarterbacks and everything and whatever else. But yeah, I guess we'll be the next show as well. It'll be Necessary Roughness on Tuesday. We'll have the bounce again next week on Thursday. I think ADP is running Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken.
I do believe that is correct.
I think it's an ADP week.
We're also gonna have biting early on the 9th.
That's common, yep.
Biting early. There may be a late night show sprinkled in there. There might be an immediate. God damn it! I gotta hide the comments while I'm in the middle of a spiel. But yeah, we might have an immediate game 2 reaction or something like that. Mixed in, but we'll be covering everything sports and everything you could possibly nerd out about. We may indeed stream over on Dweeb here pretty soon, or at least do some Dweeby over here on Bite Size.
It's getting close. It's getting close to the return. We gotta iron that out.
Exactly. Yeah. So we'll get to some stuff. I know we've got a bunch of nerdy content dropping here in the near future.
Star Wars content, some Marvel stuff in the works.
Yeah, they just said a Star Wars open world game created by Ubisoft, the Assassin's Creed.
Yep.
Oh, good. Well, there goes my free time.
Potentially in the works for 2020.
I will not be. Yeah, I'll see you guys later.
Those rumors tend to break my heart, but we'll see what happens. Right. So we'll have you covered on just about everything that we could get way too into possible. There's always such random. There's always good.
Yes. Well, he can see my Cubs logo here on the front. Justin says, "Kev, dumbest trade when we traded Rizzo to the Cubs." Shake my head. Forgot about that one. I honestly forgot about that one too. He's a Padres fan.
Oh, I was gonna say, are you? I know you're Chargers. San Diego, I suppose. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Andrew
Andrew Bynum. Oh man. Yeah, he had another while we're in end of show mode. He had another Sixers related comment.
He had a Nick Nurse comment, and then the Fred VanVleet one.
Oh yeah, well, yeah, because that's where I wanted to point it out, because he would like that. Justin, go back and watch the bounce from last night.
About it last night.
We talked about not only Nick Nurse, but specifically I brought up the possibility of Fred VanVleet joining Nick Nurse in Philly. So we talked about that for a good few minutes. So check it out.
He's a Nurse guy too. Nurse will play him 48 and be like, "All right, let's see what happens."
He would, he'd fit perfectly. Go on down, Freddie.
Nick Nurse got a little too much Tibbs in him, just a little. I mean, it's okay. It's great to have a little Tibbs. You don't have too much Tibbs in there.
Yeah. Just all right. Hang on.
Kev's very anti-Tibbs.
I'm anti having roster spots that go unused. Yeah. What are you doing? We're not football where you got 53 people with only 22 spots. We got 12 people to fill 5 spots. At least 9 to 10 of them should. I mean, in my opinion, at least 10 of them should be playing. Like you should have at least one backup for every position that you're comfortable using. And if you're not, to me personally, that's when you as a coach, it's between you and the GM at that point. There are a lot of talented cats in the NBA that a lot of them go watch some after this. Go watch some highlights of Boogie Cousins just destroying people in Puerto Rico, and he can't make an NBA roster.
Yeah.
Okay, so the talent is there. So I refuse to believe. You want to tell me that the Knicks could not have used the services of one Evan Fournier in the postseason? You mean to tell me they couldn't use somebody to spread the floor and shoot? Like, that's on Tibbs all day long. You have to play your players, especially when the situation calls for it. Look at what Spoelstra has done. People, it's next man up. You got guys named Hayward Haysmith, and you got
Howard Highsmith.
Yeah, I can't even get his name right.
He had 16 last night, I think.
And so it's just some of that comes to coaching for me. So I do love some Nick Nurse, but too much Tibbs is no good for anybody, including Tibbs. That's why he hasn't. I don't know. Maybe it's no coincidence that his best players are always getting hurt. I don't know. Might not be related. Might not be.
Tibbs, man.
Sorry for the unsolicited NBA.
Poor Amari Stoudemire's knees.
The Nuggets went 8 deep last night, and one of them was a Christian Brown. Christian Brown hit him with the Keith Bogans stat line.
Harris
over me. Yeah, Tobias. We said that last night too. Yep. Justin, you would have loved the show.
I think at this point you can go 8 deep. You're playing for the title. Let's play the dogs, but not game 35. Playing Amari Stoudemire 45.
Well, and that's kind of the heart of what I'm getting at, James. If you do that all season, then you can't do it when it matters most. When you really need to be able to do it. I'm not saying there aren't situations where you tighten the bench, you short, like you do in the conference finals, in the NBA finals. And if your team isn't good enough for you to actually play your subs to get there, then the wheels are going to fall off as soon as you get there. So what is the point? So those are just my thoughts there. You need a little depth. A little depth goes a long way.
Hell yeah. Yeah, and that's in the NFL, we've seen that too, like in like pass rushers is where I feel like that tends to come into play the most. If you can keep guys fresh, some of the best edges in the game go down with injury because they're getting every single rep. You don't see these Philly guys getting hurt much. Brandon Graham has been an Iron Man on the back end of his career because they have like hockey lines of defensive linemen. So I mean, and particularly in the NBA, like you've seen, just like you said, the other side of the coin is kind of the other team. One of the teams in the finals right now in the Miami Heat, who knocked off a Thibodeau, where they're. I mean, I think 12 different players have seen time just in the playoffs. Well, I guess if you include Hero and Oladipo as well, it's even more than that. But even once they've been injured, they've been willing to mix it up. Haywood Highsmith coming in, kind of for the Jamal Murray matchup, but they were still in that zone, so it was a little weird. But I mean, you've seen him reach deep and use all these undrafted players they've got, keep guys fresh, and that is the name of the game. We're going to keep ourselves fresh for the NBA Finals Game 1 recap. We're going to jump on and record here momentarily. But any closing thoughts on any of this, guys? Thanks again for filling in for the crew.
No problem.
Joining me.
I'm proud of you for putting Derrick Henry so high. I'm proud of you.
There we go.
Happy with that. Yeah.
That'd be good. You got to pander a little bit. I'm pissing the chat off. You got to pander to somebody.
No, it was great. Yeah, thanks for having us.
Buddy.
I'm looking forward to talking hoops in our next session.
Cool. Appreciate you guys. Well, thanks again, everybody. Catch us next week. Necessary Roughness will be Tuesday, and then all of our other shows. Keep in touch. We've got the Discord dropped down in the chat already, if I'm not mistaken. Join us on there. You'll get updates on when the shows are going live. You can talk ball in between with us, or sometimes we talk other stuff. Oh, what do we got?
Got a great show, and a Chargers will make you bite. Honorable mention. That's good. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, until it's until your two starting tackles are Pipkins and Salyer, because you got a bunch of injuries up front. Boom. That's my only comeback. If they're healthy, you're probably right. All right. Well, thanks everybody in the chat. Thanks for joining me, fellas. We'll see you next week, guys. It's still like ticking on my thing. It's not. Oh, all right now.